Let's do it. Hi, I'm Chris.
And I'm Cherie. We're of Technomadia.
We have been on the road almost 11 years now as full-time nomads.
And this is our live video chat series. These chats were originally broadcast live, and our viewers could interact with us and ask questions. If you're watching this on the archive, in other words, if it is not January 25th, if you're watching on YouTube, that's a good indication too. Just ask questions down in the comments, and we'll address them when we have a chance. But this is an archive.
But if it's January 25th, you are watching this live, you can interact with us. We'll be taking live questions, and it's more fun for us knowing there's an audience out there, so yay.
So, it's more likely this video will be nearly an hour long. It's a lot of us talking and then taking the questions and answers. That's just the series. We do have a lot of short-form content. The topic this evening is shopping for houses that move.
Like Howl's Moving Castle, the Miyazaki classic, the
that's cool.
giant walking feet castle. That'd be a house that moves.
Yes, and a house that howls.
And
no,
he was the professor or scientist guy inside of it. But
anyway,
yes, no, that kind of house that moves, we cannot get quite yet.
But RVs and boats is what we are focusing on. In our 11 years on the road, we have owned and shopped for 3 RVs. And we are currently shopping for a boat as a second home. We are keeping the RV, and the boat will become what we start exploring the Great Loop on summers and springs.
Boat will be our summer home, bus will be our winter home, and we get to be, why not have 2 houses?
Sure. So, since that's kind of what we're in right now, we thought we would share with you guys some tips and tricks and things to think about if you're in the shopping phase, whether it's your first RV or boat or a replacement or an upgrade. And just want to start this off from the start. You can full-time in anything.
Really? I started solo in a 16-foot tab clamshell. It's about as bare bones. We know people who do it and they've turned the inside of a Prius into an RV. So you can go even smaller, but a 16-foot tab with no bathroom, no shower, no refrigerator, no air conditioning, but solar and internet, so what else do you need? You can full-time in that, and we did. And Sheree and I joined me, and we did it together for quite a while.
And we did. And then we moved up to a 17-foot travel trailer, and now we're in a 35-foot bus, and now we're looking at motor yachts in the 40-plus range. Yeah. So we've gone up. Some people go down. There is no right or wrong. So none of what we're going to be talking about is what is the ideal full-time RVing or boating vessel.
Because everybody's got different personal
trade-offs.
What
we're talking about is how you can go about deciding what's right for you. We don't like to tell you what to do. So there's 2 theories in shopping for your home. And the first is buy your third RV first.
So some people, the idea with this is don't make the mistakes that you have to then pay for and stuff, and that you research and seek out the ultimate perfect thing based on your fantasy in your head of what it's going to be like out on the road, and then go all in on that. Spend as much as you can, go all out, get the perfect thing from day one. And
buy brand new, get all the bells and whistles, save up for it. We see this a lot with people that are preparing many years in advance for an early retirement or retirement, and this is going to be their full-time home afterwards to explore. There's a lot of wisdom to this.
There's a lot of downside, too.
There is. And one of the downsides of it is until you're actually out there living on the road, whether it's extended or full-time, you really just don't know what it's like. And it's hard to predict.
Yeah, and also, what is the great RV for your first year, 2 or 3 years on the road? By the time you're in year 5, you might want something completely different. Your needs might have changed. Your style of travel might have changed.
You might have started out thinking you're going to go visit maybe all the national parks, and you get out there, you start doing it, and you get about 30 in, and you get tired of national parks, and you decide you like boondocking, or the opposite. A lot of people think they're going to go to RV resorts all the time. They get out there, they get tired of the costs, being tightly packed in, and they want to go more to the national parks and things where they're going to be boondocking more.
And so there's a lot of good that can come from putting a lot of thought and intentionality and trying to get the perfect RV. The big thing we want to caution people against is don't overextend yourself, that if you change your mind and this isn't the perfect RV, you're not trapped with a 20-year mortgage and underwater, and we know quite a few RVers who cannot change it up. They're financially impossible for them.
Remember, RVs and boats, they are depreciating assets just like cars. Pretty much, if you buy brand new, they are going to decrease in value pretty quickly. So don't get yourself in upside down. We prefer to lean people towards consider your first RV exactly that, your first RV. And give yourself the leeway to change it up as your own travel style changes and as you learn how you like to travel.
Yeah. And yeah, definitely. There's we know horror stories of people who've been kind of trapped by their RV, and that's not a good thing.
So next consideration when shopping for a extended home or full-time moving house is consider the purpose or the lifestyle that you want to live. Are you setting up for going from RV park or marina to marina? Or are you wanting to integrate in more boondocking and being off the grid?
And if you're looking to optimize for boondocking and going way off grid, particularly for RVs, not boats are a little bit different, but for RVs, you're not going to find very many new RVs that are set up for this. And that's something to keep in mind. If you're planning to do a big solar addition project or re-gut the battery system and replace everything with lithium, or do big inverters, or even replumb things with new tanks, sometimes you're better off starting with something older where the batteries are already shot and the electrical system is ready for an upgrade and you don't mind drilling holes through the roof. If that's your goal, buying new and then immediately doing major renovations is often a little unwise.
Right. Or if you can find a manufacturer who will custom build something to you. That's what we did with our Oliver travel trailer, is we took their basic and then had them do the features we wanted during the build. And some manufacturers will work with you that way. Also consider, are you gearing up for extended stays in one location? Like, are you just going to pull into an RV park and take out and be there for a few months at a time or a season? Or are you going to be moving around, or as we call it, hypermobile?
Yes.
That makes a difference. Do you want a larger space or a smaller one that's more nimble? Do you want to feel more like an apartment?
Yeah. Think about the amount of setup time that might be required, and some of these big mobile moving mansions are awesome if you're going to be set up in a place for quite a while. But the little nimble things built on Sprinter chassis, aptly named, are wonderful. They get great fuel economy if you're driving a lot. They still can be pretty roomy inside, but they can go just about anywhere a car can go.
And there's everything in between.
Yes.
So it's all a trade-off and a balance, and it just kind of pre-think some of those things, especially and on a boat as well. There's a big difference, and if you're going to be anchoring out or being in marinas or if you're going to be going across blue water sailing, as
Totally
they call
different
it,
world, yes.
going across big oceans, or if you're going to be intercoastal. So.
Yes.
Very considerations. Try to find the RVs that are purpose built for that.
And buy the RV or boat for the things that you know you're going to do, not the things that you fantasize about doing someday, because you'll spend a lot more to fill in the fantasy blanks that you might not ever get to, and by the time you do, it might be obsolete or out of date or need renovations anyway. So don't get too caught up on your fantasy of sailing around the world or boondocking in the remote northern Alaskan wilderness or something in winter.
Especially if that's kind of a goal 5 to 10 years off.
Right,
because
exactly.
so much can change in between.
Right.
There. All right, so some kind of considerations when you're doing your shopping and you're looking at individual floor plans or models and you're touring them. These are the things to look out for, or considerations you might want to make for a full-time or extended living. And that's, really test out the living space in these things. A lot of these boats and RVs are recreational. They're really designed for a
couple weekends a year.
Exactly. A vacation or an extended vacation. They're not always thinking through the extended everyday living.
And sometimes I think a lot of them are designed with check boxes in mind of like, okay, we need to have a big screen TV, we need to have a fireplace, we need to have
a shower, we need a toilet.
And then they just give them to some designer someplace and just slaps the parts together without any thought around how people are actually going to practically live and what they're going, we've seen RVs with designs that are so ridiculous that the TV is behind you when you're sitting on the couch. And okay, did somebody even think that through?
So really, when you're going and look at them, you're going to walk into them and think, oh my gosh, it's got a fireplace, and it's got a toilet in the back, and a toilet in the front, and it's got a huge kitchen. Really start to consider how you're going to live into it.
Right.
So go into the bathroom and
step into the shower.
especially because so many can be so short, and if you're taller, that can be an issue.
Right.
Sit down on the commode and imagine what it's going to be like if you're having some tummy troubles.
Yes. Can you get your legs far enough apart? Can you shut the door of the bathroom? We've seen RV designs where, oh, they got a really cute little bathroom, but the doors won't close if somebody's inside of it. That's kind of...
Or it's very tight and
Yeah,
claustrophobic inside.
Yeah. Do these things before you buy.
If you're going to be living with a partner or family, kind of simulate what it's like to get ready for a day out. You know, if both of you are wanting to get dressed, what's it like if one of you is showering and one of you is trying to get dressed? How do you move about in the space as you're both doing everyday stuff?
And then also think about your just typical hanging out at home evening time stuff, or particularly for full timing where you've got, you know, a kitchen and a living room area. Do you have to walk back and forth through the living room in front of a television sometimes to get to the fridge? And we've seen that design where the kitchen's here, the fridge is here, and the TV's right in between. And that might look really great on the showroom floor, but think about the livability of that, and that'll drive you crazy probably.
Think also about the kitchen space. Are you, for the way you like to cook, is it going to be comfortable? I don't like some of these layouts where the refrigerator is on the exact opposite side of the kitchen counter space and there's nowhere to downstack or load in the refrigerator. Or if you want to go back and grab an ingredient, you're trying to, manage what you're chopping and cooking, and that's not my personal preference.
And here's another thing is maybe even if you're going out to tour RVs, is bring one of your favorite pots and pans and see if it'll fit in the sink. We've seen both boats and RVs that have these ridiculous sinks that you couldn't wash a pan in if you tried. You couldn't, period, not wash a pan in.
Well, even our bus, when we bought it, it had one of these double split sinks where neither side was large enough to
For a plate.
Even wash a plate. So that's the first thing we did, is rip that out and put in a full
big stainless sink.
Yeah. Definitely look at the practical elements. Look at storage space. Is there enough to store, a week's or two worth of food? Whether it's fresh foods or you prefer dry goods. Clothing. Do you have enough to store a week or two's worth of clothing without having to do laundry? Where are you going to put the dirty laundry? What about shoe storage?
And
both at the front of the coach if you got muddy shoes, or where your clean shoes go.
Yeah, and then something a lot of people don't think about until they get an RV or boat home is, if they have pets, is where's the pet stuff going to go? Litter boxes, dog dishes, water bowls. This is something that great living room layout is now, there's no place for the things that need to be there.
And then for those of us working on the road, where are you going to work?
Yes.
You may think, a dinette.
Almost all RV dinettes are ridiculously uncomfortable for extended sitting. So take the time to sit and imagine you're there for more than just dinner. If you've got to work, is this going to work out for you? And a lot of them think that through. It's not really good. So
look out for modifications that you might be able to make to the floor plan to become an office space. And we have a whole series on the blog at technomatty.com/workspaces where other full-timers have submitted case studies of modifications they've done to their RVs to get a usable workspace. So go look at that for some ideas. And then, of course, just like Chris was mentioning earlier, we're just kind of coming back down to just the living and relaxing. Sit in all the chairs, see how comfortable they are. We've seen some great layouts with like L-shaped living rooms with a couch in it, but the couch is just so uncomfortable. Yeah.
Lie down on the surfaces. Try them out.
Yeah. So just really, really take the time and feel it out, and just remember this is a home, not someone's vacation. Okay, let's talk about size. Does size matter?
Size matters, but it could be too big. It could be too small. The perfect size for everyone is going to be a bit different, and I think a lot of people actually end up having regrets about the size that they get.
Going to, I think it's more common to see people wanting to downsize after they get something. They think they need the 40 or 45-foot RV, and then they get to a few campgrounds where they have difficulty backing into it, or they're trying to make a reservation and they can't find reservations for the large RV, but their friends in 30-foot RVs can. I think more people tend to want to downsize, but we're certainly, we started in a 16-footer and went up to 35. So it definitely can go in reverse. We see plenty of people go the other way.
People, particularly when they're coming from a house, they get really worked up about or afraid of being in a small space. And so they gravitate to the biggest RV possible. They're like, oh, 45 feet, 2 bathrooms, this and that. And once you've been on the road a year or two, a lot of that stuff just becomes dead weight in little ways. And so, some RVers love it. They thrive with the bigger things. Some boaters thrive with bigger boats. But a lot of people, they're like, yeah, actually a little bit smaller might be better. And we hear that a lot.
And we also hear the exact opposite from others. They start with something smaller, they get out on the road, they realize they like a slower pace, and they're still more often.
Right.
And they find it worthwhile, the effort, to find a place where they can comfortably park for a few months at a time, and they want more living space when they're parked.
Mm-hmm.
There's no harm, but size does matter. The larger you go, the less spots are going to be available for you. Doesn't mean you're not going to find places. Mm-hmm. It's just for every foot you add to an RV and to a boat, it's just the less variety that you're going to have. Mm-hmm. There have been plenty of times, we have a 35-foot bus, but we frequently caravan with friends who have 40-foot and 45-footers. And there's times when we're trying to coordinate our travels, and we have plenty of choices for sites, even in the same campground, and they might have one choice of site that fits them, or none.
Yeah, and for us, we've gotten really partial to 35 feet. It's a really sweet size. We wish more RV manufacturers did high-end, high-quality RVs in that size. It's actually kind of a 30 to 35 feet is a little bit of a crossover space. There's not a lot of great stuff.
Seems to be a sweet spot, and especially particularly in RVs, keeping in mind a lot of the older parks, particularly public parks, were built when highway laws had a 35-foot maximum. And that's why we went the 35-foot vintage bus when that was the max highway length. So a lot of the older campgrounds still have that 35-foot
designed in.
Exactly. So you're going to have a lot more options at 35 and below. But a lot of the newer parks, because there's so many 40 and 45 footers coming off the assembly lines, that they're building new parks with that in mind. Mm-hmm. So it's not that you're going to not find options.
Yes.
But it will be a little more planning. Mm-hmm. Size can also matter in the cost of things, particularly in boats. One thing we're finding as we shop for boats is everything's priced by the foot.
Camping by the foot, or
marina
space by the foot.
Hauling your boat out for work is billed by the foot. Surveying it is billed by the foot. RVs, you don't get that as much. Usually a campground, they might have a premium and a deluxe site or a regular site. They might have a under 20-foot site and an over 35-foot site.
But for the most part,
it's a flat rate.
It's flat rate, which is just great. You're not penalized for being bigger.
Right. They may charge for different amperage for hookups if you're 30 amp versus 50 amp. But it's more standard for RV sites to be flat. Marinas are definitely more variable. And then, of course, size plays into fuel economy, and handling on the road, and living space, of course.
And actually, and sometimes when it comes to handling on the road too, the bigger ones are designed with a much more advanced suspension and chassis. They'll ride a lot better. When you try and put a 30-foot chassis onto a Class C truck body that's not quite designed for it, you drive down the road and you're like, it can be a miserable ride. That's actually something that not a lot of people take into consideration, is try to get a test ride in a similar model of RV, even if it's not the same brand, at least the same chassis, just to make sure it won't drive you crazy. Because we know people who bought RVs and hated them after they've taken them cross country just because they ride miserably.
All right, so now you have some ideas of things to take into consideration. Now, how do you decide what is right for you? Of course, researching, paying attention on forums and groups, or reading blog posts and seeing people post pictures and tours is fantastic. Also, browsing online ads like on RV Trader or Yacht World, going on YouTube and just looking for video tours of the type of RVs that you're interested in, trying to get as many virtual tours as possible.
Virtual tours can be great. We've been watching boat porn almost
every night.
Every night, every week. We just go on and search for a model, and you'd see a lot of really poorly made videos usually, but they at least walk around and show you stuff. Sometimes you might see somebody doing some maintenance on something. You can hear about some issues. You get to see the insides in a way that you can't from still shots, which is just nice. So, YouTube's been wonderful.
Virtual is a great way to shop from home, but nothing replaces being in the space and feeling it. There's so many times, like when we were shopping for our bus, it's kind of like dating, is you would be trying to read the profiles and see the pictures and the videos, but when we went and saw that same bus in person, it had a totally different feel. The quality of the wood, the condition,
And sometimes, particularly when you're shopping for used buses, used RVs,
gosh.
used boats, you see pictures that were taken, and sometimes you even see it in the fine print of the picture. That picture's 10 years old. Or that's the manufacturer's picture from the brochure. What's this one really look like? And sometimes that tells you a lot if they're using a picture from the brochure rather than a real one.
So what you want to do is try to see as many RVs or boats in person as you can, as is practical. And some great places to do that, where this is kind of what's expected anyway, is going to RV shows and boat shows. We just went to the Florida, Tampa, it's commonly called the Tampa Super Show.
Yes.
But
It is billed as the biggest RV show in the world, I believe, and it is an amazing space to see. Basically every RV manufacturer has their lineup on display, so you could really go head to head and compare and get a feel for the things that you will never experience just going to a lot that might only have 2 or 3 brands represented.
And there's boat shows all over the place. We did one in Rhode Island. We're probably going to go to the Miami one later this month. It's a great way just to get that experience of the different layouts and decide what really works for you, what features you might want in your mobile living space. Most of these shows, however, they're going to be highly concentrated on new, which may not be exactly what you want.
But it's still a great place to get ideas on layouts, and then in particular on the brands. You can get a sense for the quality for some of these RVs. Going to the Tampa show, it's really eye-opening. You walk into some RVs and they're creaking. You lean against the wall and it feels like you could poke your finger through the wall. And other RVs feel like they're really solidly built, and you just get that sense of quality when you walk into them, and you can find out these are the brands, these are the product lines that have that, and these are the ones that aren't going to hold up after 3 or 4 years, because their walls are basically just cardboard with wallpaper on them.
Another great resource is going to rallies. So look at what might be going on around you. There's always FMCA, Escapees, Good Sam. They're usually hosting either very large rallies or regional ones. So if you join those groups, you can go to their rallies.
And in the boating world, there's, like, we went to the Marine Trawler Owners Association rally, and rally, I guess they call it.
It's a rendezvous in
yes.
boating, in the loop, at least in the Great Loop community. Rendezvous seems to be a common term. And at rallies, we found that some of the RV dealers, they bring in a mix of used and new coaches, and some that are for sale, and you get some pretty good deals on them right there, because they don't have to take them home or to the next rally. You also have an opportunity to network with other RVers and might get invited in to tour theirs. Some rallies even host official kind of parade of homes.
Open house day.
Open house day, where people who want to can put a placard in their front windshield.
And if you're looking to full-time, seeing how other full-timers do it and what rigs work for them and how they've made them work says everything. And it also says a lot about the quality. If they've been living in something for 5 years straight and it still looks new and feels solid in quality, that says a lot. If 5 years of full-timing or 10 years of full-timing, that's a huge endorsement for a particular brand.
Factory tours, if you have one of the major manufacturers within driving distance of you, it could be worth going and asking for a factory tour. Get an idea of the build, and they might have some floor models.
Yeah, we've heard people come back from factory tours either completely in love with the manufacturer or completely horrified.
Yeah, it can be scary sometimes.
Yes.
RV dealers, of course, they're all over the country. They might have a limited selection, or larger ones may have a really varied selection. Just be careful, don't give the salesman all your social security number and bank account right when you walk in the door.
and don't let them push you around. So RV dealers have earned a horrible reputation.
There are some good ones out there.
There are some good ones, but if you feel like they're giving you a runaround, just walk away. You're in control.
And if you are considering a new RV, now remember, one of our top recommendations is go for the higher end brands and buy an older one that's still in great shape. But if you are considering a new one, make some effort to look at that same brand and close model that's about 5 or 6 years old, just to see how they're aging. And that'll give you a good idea of how they hold up over time.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. If you look at the really high-end brands, like a Newell, Ford Travel, or anything built on a Prevost, you'll look at one that's 20 years old, and it will still come across as new. Whereas you look at some of the really low-end brands, and you could hardly... A 5-year-old one looks like it might be ready for the scrap heap.
maybe not 5. I think they're getting
Some
a
of
little
them are
better,
like
but
that,
some of
but
them
yeah.
are. Other options is if you've got campgrounds or RV parks or marinas around you, it's just go walk around them if they're open to the public and get an idea of what's out there. Now, don't expect for the campers or sailors in those vessels to immediately invite you in with open arms for tours.
And do not knock and ask for tours from random
Remember,
strangers.
these are people's homes or their
Yes.
vacations. They're not on display. But if you're social and friendly, you might get invited in sometimes. Another great resource, and I'm just going to toss it out there, is even if you're in the shopping phase, join social sites for RVers, whether those are Facebook groups, forums, or whatever, and put out there that you're shopping. And if you make note that you're in the area, you might get invited by RVers who are in your area to come stop by. Our Village is a great resource for that. You put your location in there, and as other RVers check into nearby, you'll get a notification. And hey, you might invite them, invite yourself to bring happy hour over to their place. It's a great idea.
And some RV brands have both formal and informal ambassadors who are very eager to show off and share about why they love a particular RV.
All right, I am going to open my laptop. We're entering the third section here.
These 3.
All right, this is the third section. If you have questions for us, you can go ahead and start queuing those up. They should start showing up on my screen, and then I can get them when we're done. So go ahead, and if you do have questions, feel free to start queuing those up. And we're going to talk our last section is on how to conduct the search. So you've decided what you want, or you've got a few models that you're interested in. How do you find the one?
How do you find the one? I went on a Prius form and you've stalked me, so it's like
All right, so keep in mind, this is not like shopping for a house in your ideal neighborhood. You're not looking based on location for a house that moves. Your house either has propellers or sails or wheels under it, and it can move around the country.
it can come to you. Well, after you buy it, you can bring it to where you are, but you can go to it.
So expand your geographic location search out for as far as is practical for you to get to and inspect RVs and boats in person. So don't just look at what's available on the local lot. We've heard some people, they bought the very first RV they ever saw, which happened to be the RV their neighbor had for sale in their driveway.
Right.
Hey, that could work out.
Serendipity, we trust that sometimes.
But more than likely, your RV may not be available within 50 miles of your house. You may need to expand the search out statewide, regional wide.
And in particular, if you have something very specific that you're looking for, and like I want this model, this brand, this 3-year range with this floor plan, once you've got the search going and you're like, you find it up in Seattle or somewhere, like halfway across the country, you get comfortable, swap pictures with whoever's selling it. Quite a few people will do their purchase where they'll fly out with a one-way ticket, and if it meets all criteria, the deal is they'll just drive it home. And we know a lot of people who've bought RVs and boats that way.
And we have some who've had very disappointing results, and others who have been pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, and if the disappointing result is all you're out is another plane ticket, is basically.
Yep. So yeah, expand that out, but balance the practicality of it. I mean, obviously, you can't always just take a month and travel the country by train looking for your ideal bus, which is what we did.
Yeah, no. Make an adventure of it.
Right, yes. Track several resources. So if you're shopping for an RV, Craigslist, eBay, RV Trader, those are all great places to keep an eye on. Join user forums for the type of RV or manufacturer. Sometimes they're for sale listings there. Put a word out there that you're looking, and you might get people contact you who have what you want just
before it goes on the market.
Before they even put it on the market. Those can be great things. You can set up notifications on some of these sites and track them. I don't know if it's still around, but when we were hunting for our bus, there was something called motorhome search. I forget what it was, but basically you could set up searches on eBay, Craigslist, and whatever, and I could just go to one listing and see everything all at once.
All across the country.
Brokers, you don't find them as much for RVs. I don't hear of too many brokers. Buying a boat is a little more like shopping for a house.
Brokers are involved in most.
Much more. Just like houses, you can buy houses by owner. You can with boats, but by and large, RVs are mostly
Like
with
buying a car.
with a dealer or from an individual, and you don't normally have a broker who does it unless you're doing very high end ones. With a boat, we're using a buyer's broker who goes out and previews boats for us. So we send them a list of boats we're interested in. If
They'll
it's
research them. Yeah.
they'll research it, call the broker, get more information for us. It's been great. I mean, especially as newbies.
And we've actually had people write us over the years wishing that we would be their RV broker, find them their RV, do something.
We don't do it.
It's probably a business opportunity for somebody who wants to be, an RV matchmaker like that, but there's no business model there. There's like in the boating world, there's a set percentage that kind of is set aside for brokers, whereas in RVs, who's going to pay that person in the end?
Right.
How's it all going to work out?
Yeah, because boats, it's factored into the price.
Yes.
That for the brokerage fees, just like in houses. RVs not so much. Dealers pretty much. So it's very
Control
different in
everything.
how. That's a big difference between boats and RVs. And make an adventure of it. That's what we did. You want to talk briefly about our search for the tab? How did you search for your tab?
Searching for the tab, I started off just trying to find the smallest trailer I could get that I could tow behind a Prius that didn't exist. So I went to a dealer, I saw a clamshell tab, I fell in love with it, and they said they could have it in time, and then they apparently were lying because it wasn't ready in time, but I bought it on the spot. So it was kind of quick turnaround.
And we kept that for about a year and a half. We met in that process, did a year on the road together with it. Then we got the Oliver travel trailer. That one we had custom built for us, but we found them because we thought the Casita was going to be the next upgrade to the tab for us because we wanted a bed and a dinette.
Yeah, the tab was like an impulse purchase, barely any research in advance, whereas the Oliver, we researched that thing to death and then designed it. And how we wanted it.
So Oliver's kind of more of a upscale Casita designer, and they were able to do a lot of customizations for us.
Super high quality.
When we decided we were ready for a motorhome, we started researching. The Oliver sold well
instantly.
before we even put it, even made mention that we were really searching too much, and so we were kind of left homeless with just backpacks, and we decided at that point that a vintage bus was likely what we wanted. We
wanted 35 feet.
We decided really quickly we wanted the 35 feet to stay under to get more locations because we really love state parks. And we bought a month-long rail pass on Amtrak, traveled the country looking at buses, using Craigslist and eBay for...
We'd get to a city, we'd rent a car and drive around, see what we could see.
Until we found Zephyr. With the boat... we got in touch with a buyer's broker this summer when we were still in New England, and coordinated with them to help us decide what was going to be right for us by touring as many boats as we could as we came down the coast. And we were very clear with them that we were not really in a buying mode, although we left it open. If we found the one, that was great.
That we were hoping to be in the buying mode by the time we got to Florida, so we wanted to spend our time coming down the coast tasting as many things as we could.
So we went to boat shows, we went to rendezvous, and then they had brokers all along the coast that work with them that they're able to get us showings of whatever was our next fascination and what we wanted to rule in or out.
Yeah.
And so we just tried to get aboard as many boats as we could in the process to get a feeling for what felt right for us.
So we get down to Florida, and now we've made an offer on a boat.
Okay. All right. That's it for what we had prepared. We'll see what questions you guys have for us.
And I'll open the wine.
The wine.
Okay, what is the wine tonight?
This evening's wine is from Mary Michelle. It is a Illinois wine. This was a gift from Chris's parents for Christmas that we've been saving to share with you guys this evening. By share, I mean we're going to enjoy it in front of you. As a reminder, we do these video chats in our spare time. This is fun. We're not trying to sell you anything. We just enjoy sharing what we're up to and share what we're learning with you. If you appreciate these, we love to hear your gratitude in comments and thanks. Reaching out to us and saying thank you is always goes a long way for us. If you really want to charm our socks off, see, not wearing socks, we do have a leave a tip button on the bottom right-hand corner of every page of technomadia.com where you can send us a virtual bottle of wine or any other gift level that you like. And we always appreciate that. That just always keeps us, all the appreciation keeps us inspired to come back and do these again.
It reminds us that people actually like this stuff and that we should keep doing it because we could be watching TV right now.
Yes.
Or
it does takes a lot of bandwidth and a lot of hours to put these together. So, but we enjoy doing them, and as long as you're enjoying it and we know it, we do it. We keep doing them. So, cheers to you.
Cheers.
Thank you. And I'm going to have a sip. And then I'll grab and see what questions you guys have for us. It's good.
A little tart.
It is tart.
Might need to breathe a little.
Yeah, I'm going to set mine on the floor. Let it breathe. Alrighty. Okay, so I am
Scrolling back.
scrolling back.
Okay. That's video good, video good, video good. That's all the beginning.
Okay. To find out, we don't have an assistant this evening. All of our assistants were one's out of country and one's at Quartzsite where there's not much bandwidth apparently. If you'd like to volunteer to help us queue up these questions, please do write us. It does help us a lot because I'm going to be spending a lot of time trying to find the
I
questions
see
here.
David Davis mentioned tank size, and that's something we forgot to mention, but
Okay.
keep that into mind when you're doing your RV shopping, is how much capacity do you need? Because that's something that's really hard to retrofit later, and if you've got really tiny tanks, that can really put a crimp on your style, either boating or RVing.
So how do you plan long-distance shopping travel trips? And we did that with the bus and coming down the coast, which I think we covered a little bit of. And that's just a lot of just putting together. I had a spreadsheet that we kept of all the candidates, and we had them organized by location and features. And that's kind of where we planned. It's like, okay, when we got to one location, we decided, okay, that's not working. What's the next closest one we could get to? And just a lot depends upon what you're searching
And we try
for.
to bunch things up. So if we're looking, we have a target in one place, and we particularly did this with boats. It's like there's one boat we want to see, but since we're going to go out and look at boats in that town, what other boats that maybe weren't high on our list, but would just give us more perspective that we could take advantage and make that a multi-stop trip? And that's very useful.
What are the features you have found most useful and most useless? Useless, light up fancy countertops. It seems to be a trend.
Yeah, no, there's so many boats, RVs both, to make them seem higher end, they just get gaudy with lots of strange light accents and stuff. And actually, if you look at some of the older versions of them, where you've got like beautiful rope lights that are circling the ceiling, but then after it's 10 years old, like 3 random bulbs are out, and those are built into the ceiling. You'll never fix them, and it's going to look awful forever. Those sort of like gaudy light effects, I think, are not good.
Useful, I mean, I can go on and on. I mean, we love our hydronic system. We love our MCD shades.
Solar panels.
If you want to go back, we actually did a video a year after the renovations that we did on our bus, talking about our 5 top features, upgrades that we did that we just love the most.
Other useless features.
Useless features.
Useless features. I don't know.
I don't know. Okay, next question.
Yeah.
If we can find a sub 40-foot bus unconverted, who does a good job of building it out? Or would buying a 25-year-old high-end be better? Building out and converting is going to be very expensive, because if you're going to be hiring somebody to do the conversion for you, be prepared that it's going to be a $250,000 to $500,000 project.
It's a huge project to have a professional convert a bus.
And multi-year. We have a friend, Ben Wilmore of the Creative Cruiser. He bought his shell of a bus about a year before we bought our bus.
Oh, God.
That was 6.5 years ago. He's just now
Getting his bus.
He's probably not going to be able to pick it up until springtime this year. So
Yes,
6 years
it's in
he's
paint now. It's almost finished. So
it's a major project to convert a bus.
And Ben's very special and particular, and takes his is going to be one of the most amazing vehicles on the road. When some other people have just kind of had more run of the mill but still completely custom conversions can take a year or two. If you're doing a home conversion, then that is a big commitment on the project side. If it's something you like to do, it can be very affordable if you want it to be, and you can have things exactly how you want, but it's a massive undertaking. But
we know people have done conversions. They've taken it to a shop and had it done in under 6 months. We know people have done it very quickly, but it is a major undertaking, and you're never going to get back but a small percentage of that if you try to sell later. So make sure it's what you want and you're doing it for yourself.
But what you then say is, is getting a 25-year-old, something that was high-end 25 years ago, a good deal. Those are actually some of the best deals that we've ever seen other people get as far as RVs go, because they've basically lost all their value. They're very hard. Nobody can finance them. They're not. People don't even think about them much. But they were built so well that they're amazing now. Some of the best RVs we know on the road that we have friends in are 25-year-old flagships.
Let's see. How do you find financing when you buy from a private seller? And I think it would be the same as if you're buying from a dealer or whatnot. I mean, I guess a dealer has their own financing, but you contact financial institutions.
Yeah,
and now it does get difficult if you don't currently have a physical home base and you're using a mail forwarding trust. We're running into this because we're probably going to be financing our future boat. There's very few financial institutions that can do a mortgage, basically making. There's some mortgage
they
rules.
Just don't like full timers.
No. There was some mortgage legislation after the Great Recession that came up to prevent a lot of this from happening, and it just kind of fell through the cracks in it.
Yes.
And basically, there's very few institutions that have gone through the process to get the right certifications to write a mortgage basically on a boat or RV if that's going to be your primary home. So you have to find them very carefully. If you're doing with RVs, Alliant Credit Union in Essex, they both will do boats and RVs if you don't have a physical home address. And you can join Alliant if you're an escapees member, so that helps. Okay. See, I'm trying to find the question, so bear with me here. You guys are doing a lot of nice comments, and thank you for that, but it does make it difficult to find it.
This is where the assistants were handy because
Yes,
they just
it
have the
was.
questions separated out from the conversation thread, and we could just answer questions.
Mark would like to know, is it going to be hard to find a spot in a couple of years given how many seem to be going full-time? And the RV industry is booming big time. It is definitely getting more and more difficult, especially in the hot spots, especially in winter, if you want to be in the south. And we had a lot of people telling us who did Michigan this summer who had a lot of difficulty finding RV spots. So I think it's just going to get worse and worse.
It is. They're building more spaces, and then the desert is big out in the southwest. And it's a big, beautiful country. I mean, if you get off the beaten path, that's actually where they find the most interesting stuff sometimes.
Bob would like to know, they're looking at fifth wheels to full-time in. Are we aware of any clubs for full-time fifth wheelers? Look on Facebook.
Yeah.
There's tons of them.
Yeah, there are.
Grand Design, Carriage, New Horizons. They all have user groups. So just search for the brand you're interested in, and you'll find them.
Yeah, there's a couple high-end fifth wheel brands that really cater to full-timers, and they all have big rallies out in the desert in the winter and other places and stuff.
Okay, so I'm going to try to find some of the other off-topic questions. John and Deb would like to know, are you now happy with the propane consumption of your hydronic system? And we're having more propane consumption in winter mode. Yeah. We've solved it by avoiding winter.
Yes.
So yes, we're very happy with it now.
So we had our propane heat. We had the heater engaged for 2 nights so far this year.
Yeah.
And it probably uses a lot of extra propane when in winter mode. We still got to do a few modifications to make that more efficient. But when it's in summer mode and it's just acting as a water heater and everything in that regard, it is very, very propane efficient.
So mostly we're happy with it. We're in Florida this winter, where Florida seems to have opted out of winter, and it seems
we've been running our air conditioner
more than not. Someone would like clarification on the boat. Are we moving onto a boat and not to live in the bus? And we're getting a boat to do the Great Loop, and that'll be spring and summertime, and we'll be living in the bus fall and winter. So basically, as we move north in the boat, it gets too cold, the boat will go in storage, and we'll move back into the bus and explore the southern region.
At least that's our original plan.
Right now.
Yeah, we're planning to split it up between the 2 vehicles.
Yep. Because we want to do the Great Loop over several years, and a lot of it will be up north. Yeah. So the prime season for doing that will be summers. Kevin wants to know what our travel plans are this year. It's all dependent on the boat. So,
But odds are we'll be on the eastern half of the U.S.
yep. So, if all goes as we wish, sometime this springtime we hope to have a boat and moving aboard, getting our feet wet, and spending the summer learning the systems, and sometime when it makes sense, putting it in storage. And the bus will initially be in Florida, where we leave it, or wherever we find the boat. Who knows?
Yeah.
The boat might be in Nova Scotia. Who knows? So we'll figure it out. We're not making plans because we don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. The event horizon short.
Yep.
Okay.
Are there any RV shopping meccas?
Yeah, there is Lazy, as far as mega dealers, there's Lazy Days, which is in Florida, and they've got one other big location, right?
I think it's in Tucson.
Yeah. And they will actually, even if you find an RV on their lot remotely, they will apparently have a program where they will pay for your plane ticket, a one-way plane ticket, to fly in and do the orientation, buy the RV, and then drive it home. So they're like one of the big mega dealers. And then there's also PPL Motorhomes, which is like a mega dealer for used RVs, and that's in Houston.
And there's a lot of other ones. So you'll find that there's dealers, and then we found our bus in Arizona. It's a great place to find older RVs because of the lack of humidity. But then everything that is on rubber on it tends to dry out. So look around, start looking where all the listings are, and sometimes it's seasonal. I mean, you don't want to be looking for an RV in Maine right now because there's a lot of snow.
Yeah.
But yeah. We already answered that one.
There's the difference between motorhomes and fifth wheels.
Yeah, we're motorhome people, but fifth wheels are great. If you're going to be still longer because you get more of an apartment size type feeling in them.
Yeah, I guess the one thing I have observed is there is, but on both motorhomes and fifth wheels, but in particular on fifth wheels, sometimes it's really hard to tell the difference between the really cheaply built fifth wheels and the high-end fifth wheels.
So you really get into them.
Yeah, and you walk into them, unless you know what you're thinking about and stuff, you're like, oh wow, this has got a huge living room. And that one across the aisle over there costs twice as much, and it seems to be exactly the same stuff. But we've seen fifth wheels that literally had the bottom, only insulation for the water tanks was a piece of cardboard stapled across the bottom, and we've seen other fifth wheels that are built like tanks. So know what you're really getting into. If you're going to full-time in it, do your research, talk to other owners, and find the ones that are made for full-timing, made for the seasons that you intend to go in. They're not just summer-only RVs. And yeah, it popped to mind.
Tom says they like to boondock. Is a Class A too low for rough dirt roads? And does an airbag system allow you to get a little better clearance? So it's really hard to just say Class A's or not. I mean, so many vary on the clearance. Plenty of Class A's boondocks. So we've taken Zephyr on some pretty rough roads, but we wouldn't. There's some places where we used to go with our Jeep and 4-inch lifted axle Oliver travel trailer that we wouldn't even dare take the bus.
Right. And if you go look at the old blog posts for Sean and Louise of our Odyssey, our Odyssey.us, I think is their blog, they used to take their double-decker bus down ridiculously remote boondocking places, and they got stuck 2 or 3 times over 10 years on the road. So it's you learn to really know your vehicle and to trust it and to know where you can take it. And then if you do have an airbag system that lets you override, you might be able to buy. We currently do not have the ability to override, but Sean and Louise did. You can get a little bit of higher or lower clearance if you need it in certain situations.
John and Deb asks, John is a little over 6'2", and we're still looking for a 35-foot bus which has sufficient headroom for him. We don't find a lot of options. Any suggestions how to find more? I mean, when you're looking for a 35-foot bus, if you're actually looking for a bus, you're pretty much limited to GMs and MCIs from the 60s.
And
some flexibles.
Yeah, and we saw some
some
Prevos recently. Yeah.
There were a few Prevos that were 35
yeah.
foot, so they're rare, but you can find them. But yeah, I would make it a priority to get down to, I don't know how long off your plans are, but like the Arcadia bus rally is a great place to look at a lot of buses. Usually not for sale, but if you want to see a wide variety,
Yeah.
see if there's any bus rallies that are coming up in your area and try to get to them, just to try to tour a bunch. But yeah,
And-
35 foot, it does put some constraints on the options that are
And-
available.
Some buses, it's actually the first thing people do when they convert a bus, and apparently it's not that big of a deal if you're doing a conversion from scratch to raise the roof for many models of buses,
Not
other
GMs.
than GMs. GMs, the way the chassis is built, it's a monocoque. It can be done if you have enough money to throw at it. We have friends who did. They raised the roof because he was 6'6" on their GM. But that's very rare. But a lot of other buses, if you're doing the full thing and you're skinning that, you're taking out the factory bus windows, putting in your own windows and stuff, raising the roof is just kind of a step one process that a lot of people do.
But yeah, I mean, 35 foot on a bus chassis. Remember, they quit making them sometime in the late 60s,
Yes.
early 70s, unless they were custom orders for, purpose built sort of stuff. They're going to be older, and there's just limited options in
Yeah.
the 35 foot range, and that's
Yeah.
one of the compromises with going with it.
hmm And having sections of your leg bones removed is just as expensive as having a bus raised. So you got to decide the trade-off between them.
Tom would like to know, would we get slide outs if we bought a Class A now? Number one, not in the market for a Class A, so it's completely hypothetical.
I would search to avoid slide outs just because I like having it all self-contained. I like the design to be. I'm not just a big fan of the layouts that come from slide outs, and
We go into a lot of Class A motorhomes, and we just toured a whole bunch at the RV show in Tampa, and we go into them. They get lazy in the design of them. You go into you feel like you're walking into a big bowling alley
Right.
where they've got couches on the side and this huge open area. It's like, what are you going to do with this space? It's not like I'm hosting a ball
Yes.
or a dance or whatnot.
But that said, it is hard to avoid slide outs in new RVs. It just seems to be a default now in almost all of them. I wish there were more designs that came without them, and I think they'd be really worth considering. But it seems like you're going to get them one way or the other, no matter what, if you're buying a new Class A.
JS, what kind of sites are a good option for a 38-foot bus? Are you talking about campsites?
Or shopping sites.
Or shopping. So if you can clarify on that, I'll be
And
happy
38 is a weird size.
And I don't know of any 38-foot buses. I mean, if you're talking buses, remember buses are different from motorhomes.
Yes.
Buses are things built on a
Bus chassis, commercial.
highway bus chassis. So, Albert wants to know any comments on where to buy a national chain like Camping World, La Mesa, or a local dealer. I would avoid Camping World.
A lot of people have. I mean, some people have good experiences with Camping World, but there's a lot of Camping World horror stories and bad stories, and it's they don't have the greatest reputation. There are some dealers that, like, if you're looking for full timing, was it Paul Everett's RV World, the guy who does all the Escapees events?
Yeah, that's Paul Everett.
Yeah, so
He seems to have a really good reputation.
yeah, because he caters to the full timing audience and the Escapees audience. He sponsors every rally they have, and he brings he brings hundreds of RVs to wherever the rally happens to be. And because he's got such a long reputation in the full timing community, he seems to take really good care of full timers and pay attention to that stuff. So that's kind of a
Hey,
Well,
we
we
were
deal
just
with-
talking about Ben. Hi, Ben. We were just telling about. Someone was asking about if they should convert get a bus,
and convert it, and how long would it take?
Take,
And we used it as an
or if they
example.
should just go buy an older one that they like.
So yeah, how many years you got?
Okay, so the 38-foot bus is for a converted school bus. School buses can be difficult for campsites because a lot of the private RV parks don't allow them. So you're going to be restricted to either those with very lenient rules or finding public campgrounds that you can be in. So county parks, some state parks have larger sites, national parks. So you just have to research.
Yeah, but I mean, there's some really the school buses in particular. There's some really bad, low end, cheap conversions, and then there's
That
some
have-
people who've done amazing,
Right.
incredible things with school buses. If you want to do a lot of advanced stuff with a school bus, it's hard because there's no undercarriage. There's no place to easily put tanks and systems and stuff. So you got to do a lot of custom work. And a lot of times they don't have great suspensions for highways, but they, on the other hand, are usually have really great clearance for going into kind of rough places. They've got good ground clearance, and it can be pretty maneuverable too. They're not highway buses, but there's some neat stuff out there. Some really neat ones.
Mm-hmm. All right. I don't see any more questions. So I think it's a good place to wrap up. It's been about an hour. Thank you guys for joining us. This will be on YouTube as an archives, and we'll come up with a topic for later. But thanks for joining. And
cheers.
Oh, I should see if mine's aired out yet.
It's gotten much better.
Much
I just
better.
need a little air.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us.
And wish us luck on our boat search. Thank you.